From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
And now to the important part, introducing Jenny Rogneby, the new Queen of Nordic Noir. Swedish fiction is among the most translated in the world. Crime writers such as Stig Larsson, Camilla Läckberg, and Henning Mankell have helped attract international readers, and now Jenny Rogneby is helping us too. Her book, Leona, The Dice Cast, was a bestseller in Sweden and has been sold to 13 different countries, and it has already been sold to Hollywood with the film rights. And what is interesting with Jenny is that she really knows what she's writing about. She has a degree in criminology and has worked professionally as a criminal investigator in the Stockholm City Police Department for 7 years. Inspired by her work, she moved to Malta and started writing and formed the character of Leona, a criminal investigator whose actions challenge social norms. A crime-gripping novel about one woman's wish to shed her past through any means possible. And I really mean any means possible. And I have just finished the book myself, and it was really hard to take a break. I just wanted to continue reading it. And especially because Leona is immediately put on the case of a 7-year-old girl who robs a bank without saying a word. This is a book with a lot of unexpected twists, and that suggests that we really never know who we are working with and what lies underneath the surface. And I will let you hear more about the book and, of course, about Jenny from herself. And I just want to mention one more thing. I know that some of you might already read the first book, and I can tell you that she already have written 2 more books about Leona, but not yet translated into English. So with that, you're of course very welcome to come to House of Sweden if you can't wait for the translated version. I promise to have the Swedish lessons there. So with that, please help me and welcome Jenny, the author behind Leona.
Thank you so much for that great presentation. I want to thank the Washington Convention Center, the National Book Festival, and the Library of Congress for inviting me to this marvelous event. And I also want to thank all of you who came to see me today. It's a great honor and a privilege to be here. When I arrived here yesterday, someone asked me, "Where are you from?" That might seem to be an easy question to answer, but for me, it's been harder and harder to answer it. I can't be sure what people mean when they ask me this. Did the person mean where I was born? Or maybe where I lived most part of my life? Where I grew up? Or maybe where I live now? In my case, that is all different places, so it depends. Maybe the real question should be, does it really matter? But I know we all want to understand and know more and understand what's in front of us, so I'm going to tell you my story. I will tell you a bit about me and my journey and what formed me as an author, and I will tell you about my book series, Leona, and I will tell you, I also will read a short part of the book. And then I will be glad to answer some, if you have some questions. Yes, so I'm Swedish. I grew up in Sweden and I've lived most of my life there. I don't know how much you know about Sweden. Maybe you know the singing group ABBA, or Volvo, or IKEA, Or maybe, you know, some of our most famous authors, Stig Larsson and David Lagercrantz, who wrote the Millennium series. Or maybe you know Sweden because it was the first country in the world that banned physical punishment for children. Or maybe of our country's hard work for gender equality. But I wasn't born in Sweden. I was born in Ethiopia. And when I was 1 year old, I was given away for adoption. My biological father passed away soon after I was born, and my mother was left with 2 children. Times were hard there, and she wanted me to have a better life, a better future than she had, and that young children in Ethiopia had at that time. I was put on a plane for 12 hours from Addis Ababa, which is the capital of Ethiopia, with a stewardess checking on me every now and then. And I arrived to my new parents in Sweden. I grew up in the north of Sweden in a small town called Boden. By that time, Boden was Sweden's largest military city, and my both parents worked in the army. Luckily, I arrived in the middle of the summer. If you've ever been to Sweden in the wintertime, I think you know and understand what I mean. The summertime in the north of Sweden is beautiful, with the green forests, the rivers, and the midnight sun. But when the winter came, it was dark. I mean, really, really dark. The sun rises around 11 a.m. and sets at noon. The only thing that lights up is the snow, and there was a lot of it. And cold. Minus 30 degrees Celsius, that would be around minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit, I believe. That was nothing unusual in the wintertime. And all the children did winter sports. We were skiing, skating, snowboarding, you name it. I wasn't dreaming about being an author. Actually, it wasn't even in my mind. When I was a child, I wanted to be a figure skater. I saw them on television. They were dancing and they were doing pirouettes on the ice. And I practiced outside the river from where I lived, and there was really thick ice there from October until May. And I think I got pretty good at it, but there was a big problem. It was so cold. I was freezing up there. And I remember my mother trying to keep me warm, and she rubbed my brown hands in between her pale hands, and she used to say to me that, Jenny, it's because you don't have as thick blood as we have. That's why you're so cold all the time. And she, of course, said that with a lot of love, but I was so cold. Well, in the really dark periods, I was thinking, I am not made for this climate. But actually, who is made for that? I mean, that's a crazy way to live. But my mother still lives there, and she loves it, so. Anyway, figure skating just wasn't for me. But I was really different up there. I looked different with my dark skin and my afro hair. And by that time, there were almost no foreigners at all in the north of Sweden. As a child, you know, you always want to fit in, but for me, it was impossible. But I think being different, even though it wasn't easy, it also made me, I think I got the opportunity, and I took the chance to do different things in life, because I couldn't fit it anyway, so I could go my own way instead. and I did. So I didn't want to go my parents' path and to the army. I wanted then to be a dancer. Since I couldn't be a figure skater, it was too cold, so dancing was better, it was indoors, so it was warm. And so I moved from Boden to Stockholm and educated myself at the Ballet Academy and the music school in Stockholm. And I became a musical artist. I worked as a singer and dancer for many years. And one day I got a phone call saying that the band I was a singer in got a really big gig. We got the opportunity to be the opening act for Michael Jackson. Of course, I thought someone was joking with me. I mean, that's the phone call that you don't get every day. But it was true, and after a few weeks, I was standing there in Estonia on a really, that was the biggest stage I have ever seen, an outdoors arena, performing in front of nearly 80,000 people. That was, of course, amazing. But as you hear, there's nothing about writing here yet, but it's coming. But I was now living in Stockholm, which is a lot bigger city than I grew up in. And the thing is, I started to notice, when I was walking to the recording studio, I started to notice the society around me. I saw people on the streets having all kinds of problems. Drug addicts, criminals, homeless people. And I started to think about that. I was born in one of the world's most poorest countries, and I grew up in one of the world's richest countries. So how come people were living on the streets and having all kinds of problems? I wanted to know more about that. So I started to study at the university. I started with sociology, which is the scientific study about society and social interaction. And I studied various subjects within that field, psychology, law, social work, and I became very interested in criminal behavior and crimes. So I continued with that and later became a criminologist. And that's how I got into the crime field. For 7 years, I worked as a criminal investigator at the Swedish Police Department in Stockholm. I investigated everything from thefts, robberies, to rapes and murders. And now we're getting a little bit closer because all the hours I spent on interrogating, questioning, interviewing victims, witnesses, and suspects, collecting evidence and putting together police investigations, that gave me a lot of inspiration and ideas for crime fiction. I especially got an idea for a certain character, Leona, and that idea that wouldn't leave me. And I felt like I just had to write it down. So I thought to myself, wouldn't it be really amazing to have written a book in your life? So that's why I did what I did. But I knew it was a big task. To write a book is really a lot of work. And I wanted it to give it a fair chance. I heard so many people saying, oh, I'm going to write a book, and I want to do that. And maybe they start, but they never finish. So I took some time off from work, actually 1 year, and just to be able to write the book. And during that time, a full year, I didn't have a salary. So I sold my apartment in Stockholm. I sold all my furniture. I just kept a few memories. And then I moved abroad because I didn't want anything to distract me. To be honest, I was a little bit tired of the rainy Stockholm as well. So I wanted to be somewhere where it was warm and the climate was better than Sweden. So I moved to Malta. You know, this small little island just below Sicily, in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. And there I sat. The good thing about Malta, it's sunny. I could walk on the boardwalk and think about my characters and my story. So, and being there made me notice all the details better of the setting in Stockholm, where my book is set. So, about the police work in the rainy big city. I sat there for 1 year, and I wrote this book there. When I came back to Sweden, I sent my script to several publishing houses. I didn't know anything about the book industry. I had no contacts. I didn't know a publisher or anything like that. So I checked on the publishing houses' websites how to do when you send in a script, and I did it just like they wanted. And then I waited. It said that they wanted 3 months to read and get back to you. So I thought, okay, I'll wait. Probably around summertime, I will hear from them, if I will hear from them. But after only a week, I got a phone call. And I remember that day, it was a quite busy day. I was back at my work then at the police force because, the free year that I written the book was over, so I had to start working again. And that day was quite busy. I was on my way to interrogate a suspect, and also there had been a salesperson calling me on the phone at least 2 times that day. So when my phone called again, I thought it was him. So I answered, not very politely. I was like, yes, like, what do you want now? And then he said he was from a publishing company, and I literally fell off my chair. I had no idea they were gonna, call me so quickly. And after a few hours, another publishing company emailed me and also wanted to meet me. I was really shocked, and it continued like that until 10 Swedish publishing houses had shown interest in my script. All of a sudden, I was sitting in meetings with different publishers and talking about my book and Leona, and I could choose who I wanted to work with. And the best thing about this was that I understood that I had written something that wasn't only interesting for me, that also interested other people. They said that my script was something different from the ordinary crime stories that they received. I mean, they get thousands of scripts every year. It was different, they said, and was something fresh and something controversial as well. The book became #1 in Sweden, and it's now released in 13 countries, and the film rights are sold to a production company in Los Angeles. And I have now quit my day job. I'm no longer working at the police department. I'm now a full-time author. And once I quit my job, I thought, why do I have to stay here in Stockholm? It's raining during the winter. So I can write from anywhere. So now I live permanently on Malta. And I also have an apartment in Barcelona. So you understand, my writing has changed my life completely. I will tell you about Leona. She works at the same place as I did. She's a woman, a mother, a police officer that doesn't behave in a way that's expected of her. She's different. She's an anti-hero, and you will not be able to predict what she's going to do. In my books about her, there's a lot of twists and surprises that might shock you, make you angry, amazed, excited, or maybe everything at the same time. From an early age, Leona knew she was different. Her parents didn't treat her well because they thought she behaved in a way that little girls shouldn't behave, and they kept her away from the rest of the family. In order to survive her childhood, Leona discovered that she had to act normal, behave like everyone else. She became an expert in observing and imitating what other people did, and she behaved just like them. She's got some troubles with her emotional life, and that makes her act in a cold way. Throughout her life, she struggled to be the perfect mother to her 2 children, the perfect wife to her husband, and the perfect police detective at work. But one day, she can't do it anymore. When she's around 30, 35, and she's got the perfect life, she starts to question it. Is this it? Is this my life now? She feels trapped in the daily routines that has become her life. She can't pretend anymore, and she decides to break free. And from then on, she lives by her own rules. And that takes her on a really dangerous path, dangerous for herself and the people around her. On top of this, she is assigned to investigate some very unusual crimes. This first book in the series starts off with a bank robbery. But I've always wanted to write about a bank robbery, but I didn't want to describe it in a way that's usually described in TV series or literature, where there's a lot of young men running into a bank with drawn weapons and screaming and shooting everywhere. No, I didn't want that. I wanted the bank robber to be a vulnerable person. That's when I saw a little girl in front of me. That image of a little girl walking into a bank was really strong in my head, so that became the first scene of the book. So there's a 7-year-old girl walks into a bank in broad daylight in the middle of Stockholm and managed to get away with millions. And that's the first case that Leona has to investigate. I'm going to read a few lines in Swedish, just so you get a feeling of the language, the original language. And then I will read a short part in English. And after that, I'll be glad to answer some questions. Ingen hade ännu lagt märke till henne. Långsamt och ljudlöst gick hon med små steg längs den smala entrémattan in mot mitten av banklokalen. Stegen var beslutsamma, blicken glasartad. No one had noticed her yet. Slowly and silently, she crept along the narrow entrance mat towards the middle of the bank. Her steps were determined, her gaze glassy. She no longer felt the sores and dried blood on her naked, slender body. Only her heart distracted her. She could hear every beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The beats were too fast and uneven to count. She hugged the teddy bear against her chest as hard as she could. The pounding felt softer then. The fluorescents were harsh and bright compared to the subdued bluish-gray light outside. She squinted. Just a few more steps. Right, left, right. She stopped in the middle of the lobby. Without moving her head, she looked around in the room, taking in the high counters, the computers, the people in suits. She stood still for a brief moment before she slowly and quietly bent down to set the tape recorder on the marble floor. She lightly pressed the play button and straightened up. A gruff male voice echoed through the bank. "My name is Olivia, and I'm 7 years old. Now listen carefully and do exactly as I say." Thank you. Yes, so if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer. Yes? Do we have a microphone? Oh.
Yes, I've just started your book. I'm about halfway through Leona, and I've enjoyed it so far. I think the writing is wonderful, it's suspenseful, but I'm finding as it goes on and the twists that it takes, I don't like Leona very much. And I'm debating whether I should just put it down or I should finish the book. She's not a likable character as the book goes on. Does that change? and obviously you've written several others, so she does continue. But why is her character changed from a likable person in the beginning, and as it progresses, I'm more uncomfortable with it? And why did you do it that way?
Okay, well, thank you for reading as far as you read. Yeah, that's actually the thing about my book and my series, that Leona is a very special character, and like I said, she doesn't behave the way that's expected of her. And she wants to change her life so badly. She feels like she doesn't have a choice. She has to do something. And she does it in a way, it's difficult to talk about it because I don't want to spoil the reading for you. But, so I think you're asking if she's going to be nicer. Yes? Okay. How can I say? I can't tell you that because that would spoil everything. But Leona is a person, and I think also because she's a woman, because you've read about men doing all kinds of bad things, but when it comes to a woman, there seem to be different rules. So I would like to let you think about what would you have thought about the character if she had been a man? Would you react the same way? I would like the readers to think about that when they read. So, yeah. Yes, another question?
Yes, I'm curious about the process of translation. Did you translate your own book? And if not, did you have any control over the result of the translation?
Yeah, thank you for the question. The first English translation was actually for the Australian market. So it was first translated to English for Australia, and then when it was going to be released here in the States, there was another. We went through the whole script again, the whole book again, and made some changes for the American market. And yes, I was involved with that, but I don't translate my own books. I speak English, but I wouldn't be able to write in English language. So, yeah. Yes?
Good morning. I started downstairs in the children's section for the author of Wonder. That makes me think, what did you read when you were young? And I mean like 10 and up. 10.
what I wanted, sorry, I didn't.
The books that you were exposed to, that you liked, when you were your early teens, that kind of thing.
I mean, this when I was a child, there was a lot of Swedish authors. Pippi Longstocking. She's a strong female character, so I think that was influential for me. So, but Astrid Lindgren, who wrote Pippi Longstocking, she wrote so many other great stories that me and all Swedish children are reading. Yeah. Yes.
So to be honest, I was not aware of your book, or you, but now I'm very interested. And I just Googled you, and it's not, this book is not out in Audible. Is it coming out in Audible?
Oh, it's not now. I'll have to talk to my American publisher to talk about to answer that. I'm not sure. I hope so. Maybe I don't know how things are done here. If it goes well, maybe they do it in audio. But
How long has it been out?
since 1st of August.
Oh, okay.
Here, yeah.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
So, first off, I have Asperger's syndrome, and I'm used to sort of reading fictional characters in ways that now I can kind of tell are being described around the edges as having symptoms thereof. Obviously, the big one, especially in terms of Swedish fiction, is Lisbeth from The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. But was that ever your intent with Leona?
Yeah, that's a good question. She has some difficulties, and I haven't given her a diagnosis in the book, so that I didn't want to do that. So maybe it comes later on, but she definitely have some difficulties with her emotional life. You can see that clearly when you read the books, and that also makes her react in the way she does. So if it was on purpose, yes. It was.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning. I just wanted to let you know I'm a big reader of female gumshoes.
Sorry, I can.
I'm a female gumshoes, female mysteries and stuff. And I read Janet Evanovich. I read Sue Grafton. I read V.R. Wachowski. I read a lot of female writers. And how would you liken your character to the writers that I've mentioned as far as personality and stuff like that? And Janet Evanovich, Stephanie Plum, is a gumshoe, also the comedy. Can you understand me?
I have a little difficulty.
Okay, let me be more clear, okay? As I was saying, I love reading mystery books, okay?
Okay.
And most of my characters that are female
Yes.
mysteries. And I've never read your book before, and I was just interested on how you liken your character to Stephanie Plum and Janet Evanovich's book, or Sue Grafton, and all those other mystery writers. Is she a comedian, or is she, I know she has a dark past, but what kind of character would you define her as being? You know what I mean?
How Leona is how I would define her, you mean?
Well, what I'm saying is, though, even
Compared
though
to other
she has the dark past, but is she a comedian? Is she, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was a difficult question to compare her. I mean, I would have to say she is quite unique.
Okay.
It's difficult to compare her to other because, I mean, I wanted to challenge the norms when I was writing the character of Leona, and so she is different from any other character. So it's difficult for me to compare with
I
others.
don't mean to compare, but I was just interested based on the fact that I love reading mystery books.
Yeah, but
So-
it's difficult. That was a tough question you're giving me here.
Okay.
I'll have to think about that one.
Morning. I'm very disappointed to learn that you don't have an audio version. I hope you urge your publisher to have an audio version. I lost more than 50 pounds since I discovered audio versions of books.
That's good.
And that's all
great.
I listen to now. And I really would like to listen to your book.
Okay, I will pass that on to my publisher. Thank you for that. Yeah. Great. Oh, yes.
I was wondering, based on your 7+ years of working for the Stockholm Police, how much your experience with particular kinds of crimes informs the crimes or the other thoughts within your books?
I think I've used a lot of my knowledge and my own, I mean, both from my education and from my experience as an investigator to my books. I mean, I'm not writing about a certain investigation or a certain case that I've investigated myself, but I mean the everyday life at the police station, some of the characters I could find in I mean my own working colleagues. So, and I mean, of course, I mean, I've been sitting in those interrogations and the questioning rooms and everything, and I've done all the work myself, so it of course makes it easier for me to write about it. So yeah, I probably wouldn't have written this kind of story if I didn't have that background in working in the police force. Yes.
Can you talk about your personal discipline and your risk-taking to take a year off of work and go to Malta and write a book?
Sorry, one more time. I can't hear
Just
you.
can you talk about the motivation for you to take a year off? I mean,
Yes.
there's a level of risk-taking and there's a level of discipline to write a book within a year. Can you talk about that process?
Yeah. I mean, since I didn't work at the same time as I was writing, I had power of my own time, and yes, you need a lot of discipline to write and to get the whole book done, because maybe in the beginning you have a lot of ideas, you just want to write it down, but you need structure. It's very, I mean, writing a crime fiction story, you need to really, I mean, you need to have a schedule, and I usually write a synopsis, so I write like 3 or 4 pages with the whole story before I start to write the actual book. So that's how I do it, and I write, of course, every day, not at the same time frame every day. Sometimes I work in the morning. Most of the time in the evening and nighttime. I'm an evening night person. I don't get much done in the morning, but yeah. So, and yeah, just some days are easier, of course. Some days it's really hard. I mean, I can sit a few hours and just get 2 or 3 lines on the paper, but on other days I can write many pages. So, yeah. Yes?
Yes, congratulations on your success. We're so happy that you're
Thank
here.
you.
What has been your greatest surprise or joy in the process of publishing, and what has been one of the challenges, or some of the challenges that you experienced?
The surprises, the biggest surprise is that it's gone really this well. I mean, I couldn't imagine standing here or, I mean, releasing a book in so many countries. When I first started, my goal was to just finish the first book. I didn't know whether it's going to be published or not. And now I released 3 books in Sweden. So yeah, and film rights. It was that's the biggest surprise, I think, that everything went so well.
God morgon.
God morgon.
Being Swedish, I wonder how much of the Swedish character you have put in Leona. It's like I always get questions about how much coffee we drank, in the books.
How much, sorry, one more time.
How much of a Swedish character, like, we are supposedly reserved and, there's a lot of things that Swedes are thought to be. Have you used any of those characters in creating Leona?
She's very typical Swedish, I think, Leona. Except for the fact that, that she wants another life. A lot of people in Sweden is like, they say to me now when I moved outside of Sweden, like, yeah, oh, that's really nice. So you took the chance and you moved outside to a sunny island and writing. But most people in Sweden, they are really struggling hard, and some people want to do that, and I think a lot of people don't understand that they can as well. They can follow their dreams. So in that sense, Leona is a little bit different because she takes actions as well.
Did you follow up about the challenges or disappointments? That was the second part of the question.
Yeah, sorry. The challenges, oh my God, there are so many challenges in writing a book. The biggest challenge is so much more work than I thought. Maybe I was a little bit naive, and I knew it was a lot of work, but how much work, I didn't know that. So that's the challenge, I think, to be able to finish a story and the storyline, describe the dialogue, and there are so many parts in the writing that you don't know is difficult before you actually start. So maybe it was good that I didn't know that before. Yeah. Okay, maybe we have, one more question.
My question is about Scandinavian detective fiction in general. It seems, at least my knowledge may be wrong, but my impression is that crime rate in Scandinavia is relatively low, or murder rate is relatively low, and yet, detective fiction is very successful, and there's so many authors that are at least successful here, and wondering why is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And secondly,
a good question.
I'm wondering if any of these other authors that we're aware of from Sweden and other Scandinavian countries inspired you in any way.
Yes, very good question. I get that question a lot when I'm outside of Sweden, because people are saying, are there a lot of murderers walking around in the streets in Sweden? I think, we had a long tradition of crime fiction in Sweden. And in a way, I think that, Sweden is a quite calm and safe society. And I think that in those kind of places, you want some excitement in some way. Yeah. So, because, in countries where there's a lot of problems, war, crime stories isn't that big, of course. So I think when you're sitting there in your safe life, you want to read about something else, that's something, and also the mystery, I think. All of us want to read something that you can you're trying to solve a problem or solve a mystery. So, but yeah, you're right. That's a good point, actually. Yeah. Okay, I think we're done. Thank you so much for all the questions, and thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.